Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
Good evening there, partners. Old RJ here at the Critical Blast Ranch, and we're sitting here getting ready to talk some more crowd-funded comics. And tonight we are going to talk with Chibi Mike's own, Chibi Mike from Twitter's Chibi Comics' own Mike Murphy. And we're not going to talk about The Gods Fear Me like we advertised there, because the gods got killed.
Yeah, the gods got taken down a peg.
So the gods fear Indiegogo is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what's going on, but hopefully by like next week I'll have it resolved and can keep the campaign open a few more days.
I think they should be able to resolve that. I mean, it wasn't like it was counting down, 30 days? How many more days did it have to go on it?
No, I mean, it was in demand. I mean, we've been in demand for a while now.
Yeah, you can keep that up in perpetuity.
Yeah, I mean, we had a delay with production that set us back like a good 5 months, and I had actually shut down the campaign right around the time that we launched Deep Well. And when I found out about the delay and all the reasons behind it, I reached out to Indiegogo and asked if we could keep it open for, a couple more months. And they were kind enough to reopen it. And it's been reopened for like 2 months now. So it's weird, especially this final few days before I shut it down for good this time, that all of a sudden they closed it down on their own for, I don't know what reason.
Yeah, because I would thought you definitely had to manually shut it down from your end if it's in demand.
No, it wasn't me. Like, someone said something and they shut it down, so I just got to figure out what that something was.
Oh, you got ratted on by somebody.
You're
part of a hate group or something. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's a theory, and also I did accidentally post cartoon boobies, which might be a no.
On Indiegogo?
Yeah, page 2 had a real quick flash of Kedzie before she puts the armor on.
Oh. Yeah, well, there's no such thing as a real quick flash in comics, because that's the whole point of comics, is we can make that moment last as long as we want.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that could be it. But again, it's weird. Like, the page has been up for 2 months. Honestly, what happened was the first time, before I shut down the campaign, the preview pages that we had set up, I had blacked out. But when I reopened the campaign, I forgot that, we had finalized the colors and we redid the lettering, and I forgot about that page. And so I just reposted the new image, and I'm, like a week later, someone was like, hey, her stuff's kind of all hanging out there. I'm like, oh, but no one said anything, and it's been fine for like 2 months now.
There you go. You know what? I love having a guy with a wrench in the chat. I don't have to post links anymore. I was getting ready to say, hey, send me the link to this, and never mind. He's got it. He's got it covered.
There you go.
Now, we've never really had a chance to talk about The Gods Fear Me, which is kind of why I'm disappointed that IGG shut it down. We've talked about Deep Well before, but we haven't really sat down and gone over the whole plot structure and what that's about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about it briefly with you. Like, I mean, for anyone that catches this either live or on the replay, if you're interested, I hope you can hold out until I get whatever issue it is resolved and the campaign's open for a few more days. But yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, so yeah, I can just do the elevator pitch really quick.
Yeah.
So The Gods Fear Me takes place about 200 years after the fall of man, and we follow the one-armed android Kedzie as she tracks down the Puppet King, an ancient alien god who bested her in combat. While on her quest for vengeance, she comes across Brian, the last boy on Earth, and potential savior for what remains of mankind. They journey together on a quest to unravel an ancient mystery tied to the remnants of humanity. It's 32 pages, features the artwork of Kristen Rossi, who you may know from Alterna. He's done Voidwalker, Trespasser, a handful of other titles for them. and full colors by me. We've got lots of perks for people to choose from, and we'd really like to cross the 15K mark, which we're only about $500 away from at this point, before we shut down. Supposed to be before the end of the year, but it's probably going to be after the new year. So, when it's back up and running, please consider backing everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Testify, I've got the hat on because we're going to talk more about Deepwell, and it's a Western comic. So,
yeah.
By the way, I took the other stuff off, so I got that razor out today, and
nice.
Cut that moth back that was growing in there. My hair's thin now that I'm in my 50s, but I've been shaving my head for like the last 15 years because I'm cheap. I'm a cheap bastard. Ask my wife; she'll tell you. And I don't have to pay anybody to do it myself if I don't have to try to style it. So I just shave it all down. And the thing is that like once I decided, okay, I'm going to let it grow, I realized, there's no coming back from this.
No, you got to kind of commit.
Yeah, it's like it for the first couple of weeks, it's like, okay, it's growing straight out, and I got this little, like a crew cut thing. But then after like a month, it's like it's still growing straight out. Right. It's like a freaking chia pet. Yeah, and it doesn't lay over like it used to and have a part and all that good stuff. It's like this. I'm getting a white guy's afro. It's like there's a static ball somewhere that I'm holding, and it's just. So I was like, nope, it's never going to lay over again. I'm stuck with it like this.
No, I unfortunately I had to chop this all off like way younger in my life. I don't know what it was. I just went prematurely bald, and yeah, when you first shave your head, it kind of feels really great and kind of liberating in a weird way because you don't have to worry about your hair and doing anything with it.
Comb it with a wash rag.
But after say like 3 or 4 months, you're like, oh, this is just what my life is now.
Yeah, this is my new look. I'm never going to change again. And I used to mess people up when I was in my 20s and early 30s because I would change hairstyles without telling anybody because I could grow it long. So I went at one job and it drove them nuts because I had a security clearance, which meant I had a badge with my picture on it. So my picture badge was, interview haircut.
Right.
And then after that, I cut it real short. I grew the mullet. I had a mullet down to my shoulders in the back here. And then it was a ponytail. And then I trimmed it up some. And then I got a body wave. It was like just suddenly, I was like Mike Brady after he went to Hawaii. It went from straight to this curly top. They're like, just settle on one, will you? And now, of course, I kind of had by accident. But I can wear hats. So I feel like I'm on my way to Deepwell here with this thing, which it's official Texas hat I picked up in
There
Texas.
You go, man. Yeah, we might be on our way to Deepwell too. We might be moving to Texas within the next like year and a half. So
what part of Texas are you thinking about?
We're lining up towards Houston, maybe.
Okay.
Like the easy answer is Austin, but I mean, with the amount of California expats that are heading out that way, I've heard things. So it might be Houston.
Yeah, that's Austin's like the little red dot right in the middle of Texas.
Right.
Stay out of Waco.
No, not doing Waco.
I've done my time in Waco. I'm not going back.
Okay.
If you ever get to go to San Antonio, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, San Antonio is a possibility. I mean, like if Texas ends up being a no-go, we're also looking at like this small city like on the further northernmost point of Washington, or maybe even North Carolina. We'll have to see.
Oh, North Carolina's pretty. All that kudzu growing all over everything.
Yeah.
Unless you're allergic to tobacco, the pollen is in here all the time.
Yeah, I've heard about the pollen out there. Yeah, it's been interesting. There's kind of almost a bidding war in CG because now that everyone knows that we're looking to relocate, everyone's like, "Hey, move out towards us." So we got some places to visit next year.
You got friends in all kinds of places. Aaron Burke says, "Yes, we're going to ask." what can it possibly be like in PDX at this point, and why not move to somewhere in Texas? I don't know where PDX is, so.
PDX is the airport code for Portland.
Oh, okay. Oh, God, don't go there.
No, that's where I am, man.
Leave. I'll come get you. I'll bring you to St. Louis as a mission of what? Not even you're refugees. Yeah, it's an extraction.
Yeah, no. Like I think it's funny. Like the joke was that me and Selena were gonna have to like drive over to Narwhal and like take him with us, but I think he like got out of Portland already. Like I don't think he's here anymore.
Yeah, you can't make comics in Portland. The Portland Mafia is there.
You know, man. I've told this story a few places, but like the long and short of it is, when my wife and I first moved here, like way back in 2005, it was a completely different place than what it is now. It kind of had this like live and let live attitude to it. I mean, the mountains and the trees were gorgeous, you know, and it was that thing where there were a bunch of comic people here, but they weren't all brainwashed the way they are now. So it was kind of like living in one giant comic book convention. Like everywhere you went, like you would go shopping, you'd go to a coffee place, you go wherever, and it's like, oh, there's so and so, there's so and so, it was really amazing for like a decade. And then you know what happened. Like 2016 dropped, and everything about the city just changed, like for the worse. And
they got blue pilled.
Yeah. I mean, life here is kind of unbearable at this point.
And I don't know what happened. I mean, I've been disappointed in elections before.
Yeah.
You know, Bill Clinton was elected. I was a defense contractor. My wife said, "Why are you upset?" I'm like, "I just lost my job." She's like, "What do you mean? You're a defense contractor. You're not." 3 months later, he cuts the contract. Like, it's not like he didn't say he wasn't going to do this. So, by the way, I'm kind of cut off here at the bottom. I'm going to stand up just a bit. I'm bringing the original Punchline comic book character here.
Oh, nice.
This came from Ted Sikora's Punchline and the Vaudevillains spin out of Tap Dance Killer. Hero Tomorrow Comics produces this. So this is a killer clown who will put you down and come before DC's Punchline character.
Right. Yeah, man. So yeah, like you know, Portland is what it is, but at this point, like, it's just given us something to look forward to. Like next year, we're gonna do some traveling, see some nice places, and then we're gonna have to start to narrow it down.
Well, you know, find other CGers or something like that, so you can. That would be nice. Get a bunch of them all in one physical location, and then you could like collaborate on stuff, almost like a publishing house of some kind. Well, you've got a publishing house. You got Chibi Comics. You've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, exactly, man. So I mean, Texas makes the most sense because I think there's, you know, if not in Texas, there's a lot of people that are kind of adjacent to Texas, and that would make it easier for meetups.
Exactly. How long have you guys been doing Chibi Comics? You predate Comicsgate.
Yeah. So, you know, pretty much since we moved out in 2005 to the West Coast, you know, we've been publishing mini comics, and, you know, once it became clear that getting into Diamond, so here's some quick backstory on like us trying to get into Diamond. When we first moved out to Portland, we started producing content, and our thinking was like, hey, you know, we'll just, the whole thing that people like your boy always says, like, we'll just start at the bottom and we'll work our way up. You know, we started producing content, and literally 3 months after we moved out here is when Diamond introduced their publishing benchmark, which means if, I can't remember the exact figure, but I think it was, if you can't move something like $3,000 or $5,000 worth of product every month, they delist whatever you have up for sale that month in the catalog. Okay,
this explains why Marvel's renumbering all the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean it's true. And so, like, obviously, because we were way younger and way more idealistic, then than we are now. I mean, this naturally pissed us off, and yeah, it was that thing of like, I understand everything is a numbers game. I understand everything is business, but um if this policy, if this benchmark was in place back in the late 90s, because again, this is like 2005,
Yeah.
You wouldn't have publishers or creators like Jeff Smith or Terry Moore, or go back even further, like Dave Sim. Like, I know some of those early sales figure numbers for Cerebus, and he wasn't moving like 3,000 worth of product every month.
Yeah.
So once we kind of were locked out of, like, Diamond and essentially the direct market, we just, we did the submission thing every year. We'd put together like 2 or 3 submission packages, and of course never heard anything back. And just little by little over the years, like, our income became, from us working freelance as, writers and illustrators, pretty much outside of comics, which is still how things are now. Like, we do greeting card work. I've worked for game developers on script writing, pretty much anything except comics. And, once CG started, it was that thing of, why am I trying to get into a party that doesn't want to let me in the first place?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And
did CG have an impact on your comic business? I mean, once that movement got going and you introduced yourself, say, "Hey, I'm doing books," and
yeah, man, 100%. I mean, it cost us everything. It cost us friends, family. It cost us, all of our professional contacts, all of them. But I mean, it's why I'm, like Ethan always says, like, he's not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. Like, CG took us in, and 3 campaigns in now, like, 2 fulfilled. It's completely changed our lives for the better, and we would not be a comic publisher at this point if it wasn't for Comicsgate.
I don't get this thing that you're going through here. That and again, it happened in 2016. Just something got in the water where it's like a switch was just flipped. It's like, people are disowning family. People are walking away from lifetime friendships, all because of a decision to associate, and that's crazy. It makes no sense. Baptu is asking, has the Gods Fear Me been filled yet? You didn't. You were in demand with that one. So
yeah, we were. So real quick, without like getting into too many specifics, what happened was we needed to take about a 5-month pause on art production for the book for various reasons that I know I personally hate the whole, like, these challenging times thing, but it legitimately is, like, there was stuff that happened because of COVID and because of the market and because of the direct market. There were things that happened over the spring and summer that kind of pushed a bunch of things back for a bunch of people, and led to the Gods Fear Me kind of having to be paused for a few months. So because of that, like, we pushed everything back, and currently, Rossi is inking the final 4 pages, and I'm going to be spending January on finishing up the coloring and doing all the pre-press work, and February it'll probably be printing, and we'll be fulfilling by the end of February.
Excellent. Yeah, this crowdfunding thing is the best thing to happen to independent creators, especially since Diamond put in that whole threshold thing to keep them out. One thing that we're doing here, and I don't know if I've talked with you about this, Mike, or if you've seen it on our streams, but CBL is not going to have that kind of a Diamond restriction, Critical Blast Logistics.
Right.
We don't expect to have very many comics sitting around anyway.
Yeah, man.
But
I've heard you go over CBL a couple times, and it seems like a really promising thing, man.
Well, I just wanted to kind of help out get that shipping cost down for the UK and the Australian folks.
Right.
But as once I got it down, I'm like, why don't I just tell them to overship and then, distribute to the retailers at, cover price? Because there's no cover price on a crowdfunded book. There's no MSRP stamp on anything. So they'll just, give me the money that would have been the cover price. I pass that back to the people who sold the book that had it here, and then I just make the money on the shipping. And it's like it's a mini diamond model that tailors ideally to rare limited edition imports. But the weird thing is that the first person who's contracted with us is domestic. And I'm like, you realize the point was to say, he's like, yeah, I know. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, whoever that was, I totally get them, because I mean, let me tell you, even just 300 copies for Samurai and Dinosaurs, and then another 100 for the Leftovers campaign, fulfillment can be a logistical nightmare, especially when you're just like one or two people, and you have a day job, and you're running other campaigns, and you're raising a kid. Like, it's such a pain.
Yeah, so I'm, at the point now where I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to ship for the UK and the Australia, everyone international. But once it's up and running, I'm just going to say, everybody who's doing crowdfunding, if you want books to sit here and we'll hold them, what that does is we get to have the retailers say, oh, you have these books. They're not going to say, hey, give me a copy of Charlie's London for $10 plus $10 shipping, and then give me a copy of, The Gods Fear Me for $10 plus $10 shipping. They're going to say, give me one of these, one of these, one of these, one of these, and get them all for $12 shipping, because they'll all come in one box.
Right.
Is, something they can't do following the established crowdfunding channel.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, if not with the Red Key next year, like maybe God's Fear Me too. Like, we're definitely going to be reaching out to you.
Oh, we'll be happy to help. I mean, I'll quote you a rate.
Yeah, man.
Iron something out.
Yeah.
Bap was saying the reason he asked was he had a few different books that never came in. I've got plenty of books that haven't come in yet. I've got books that are 2 years late.
Yeah. I mean, like, so it, and again, I hate, as a reader, as a consumer, I hate the whole these challenging times thing. But like, here's a quick story regarding fulfillment that we just now are coming out of. So we ran the Leftovers campaign for Samurai and Dinosaurs. We had about 100 copies left over, and most of them have sold. We started fulfillment sometime around April or May, or no, it was June, because we ran it in April, and we were like, hey, we'll have all these copies out by June. So we started fulfillment around May, and at first everything was going great, and then everything fell apart. Like, the mail system fell apart, and that set us back. The distributors that we were going through, stamps, they started messing with us. And then the post office through stamps started messing with us. Then we had shipping supplies go missing. Then there was a wildfire for a month here in Oregon. That meant I wasn't comfortable sending stuff out because I didn't know if it was going to go up in flames at the post center. So, long story short, I totally understand the frustration of not getting stuff. I mean, there are books I'm still waiting on, but if all those things over the course of 6 months happened to me, I can't imagine what it was like across the country.
Yeah, I mean, when you send them media mail, and I don't know whether you are or not, but I don't think you can insure media mail. Maybe you can.
Right.
Check out.
No, you can't really do insurance on it. And what I'm learning is, I understand that there are some people that are frustrated with Ethan's logic of like, hey, you shouldn't be sending these media mail. And in general, I agree with the frustration because it's like, look, if this book that I'm sending out falls within media mail guidelines, there's no reason that I shouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I've had enough horror stories happen to us personally shipping these things out where it's like, okay, like we're dropping stamps, we're going through Shippo now, who's been very good to us. They're really they're a great competitor.
Yeah.
And you know, on top of that, we're not doing media mail anymore. It's costing us about an extra 70 cents per package. And I mean, that adds up. But if the end result is I don't get books missing out in the wild or sent back to us that I have to pay just to get back to ship out again,
yeah,
like ultimately it's worth it.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about media mail is that it's going to go into one big dumpster
Right.
At the post office, and you know, your comic book very literally could, you know, even though we got it in that nice stiff Gemini mailer, it could go in the bottom of that thing, and then an 80-pound encyclopedia land right on top of it.
Right.
Or a library box from Scholastic.
Yeah. I mean, some of the packages that I've gotten back have been ridiculous. Like they've been almost flattened to the point where I was worried that the book was just pulverized. I've gotten back packages opened with notes scrawled on them telling me I can't do what I'm doing, even though I can.
Yeah.
It's
the post office doesn't know its own regulations.
Yeah. I mean, literally, like I talked to 4 different people within 2 days and all 4 of them gave me different answers. And all those answers were different from what was listed on their website.
If there are no ads, it is not a comic book. A comic book is barred from media mail because it has advertisings and it has a periodical date on it.
Right.
These are graphic novels.
Right.
They qualify just the same as, you know, Scholastics does, and Scholastics and the library rate. So,
yeah. So, 2020 has been a year, man.
Yeah, and it gave us that final flip of the bird today by taking Dawn Wells with it on its way out.
I know, that was such a bummer.
Yeah. Well, I do have your page up here, and I was going to share it. I always want to make sure I click the audio because there is a video on it. So 260 backers, that's respectable.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, you know, especially when I think back to the first like 2 or 3 weeks of this campaign, and finding our audience for a Western was climbing a mountain.
I think there's an audience out there for it. I've seen a couple of different Western books start to show up in crowdfunding now. So
yeah,
you guys paving the path.
Yeah, I mean everything from like Six Gun Gorilla to I could go on. Like there are so many great indie/CG Westerns out there, and
Grave Robbers.
Yeah, like so, you know, I wasn't too nervous going in with that knowledge, but yeah, like whatever it was, like I think it just, I mean, something obviously clicked after week 4, but like there was just something about my communication. I wasn't explaining properly what the book was, and I think it was leaving a lot of people hesitant. But now that they get that it's kind of this like vigilante, you know, Shakespearean drama family thing all wrapped up into one, like people are digging it, man, and I'm so happy about it.
Well, let's give this video a play here. I feel like a DJ. Let's put this on the platter and give it a spin.
Sure, man.
And I'm back on. Okay. Got to get that transition smoothed out when I switch these around. I love the line work on that thing. I mean, that's it just screams Western comic book to me, and I don't know why, because it's not like there were comic books in the Old West like, oh, it looks exactly like the Old West comic books.
I think part of it is like there's just again Raphael, the artist, like he wasn't working strictly on Western comics when I found him. He was doing work for Action Lab and a couple other European publishers, and there was a life to his art, and something about his line work just really, really spoke to me. And so I commissioned him to do a pinup of the Lone Ranger. That was kind of his test.
Okay.
And I got it back, and it's gorgeous. Like I haven't really shared it with too many people. I should post it up on Twitter someday, like maybe before we shut down the campaign.
Show it here. Show it here.
I mean, okay. Like let me see if I can get it over to you. But yeah, man. So it's there's something about it where when we were first developing it, I saw it as very Western, and by Western I mean American. Like I saw it grim and gritty. I saw it like Deadwood. I saw it like Unforgiven. And as soon as he started with the character designs, it immediately became a spaghetti Western. And I think even though like some of those things that I listed, and stuff like, I don't know, like The Quiet Man and Tombstone and Quick and the Dead, like there are certainly American Westerns that are kind of imprinted on people's in people's minds. I think there's something about the spaghetti Western that kind of, in this abstract way, like our brains see it and we go, oh, that's Western. So I think when people see his work, they automatically see Western, like it's this really weird thing that he's able to capture.
Well, I grew up, reading all the Jonah Hex books. I thought those were just fantastic. Jonah Hex and Scalp Hunter. I wasn't too big into Bat Lash for some reason. He was just a little too low T for me. I don't know why.
That's understandable.
I think it had something to do with the flower in his cowboy hat. I get he was a lover, not a fighter, and a gambler, and all that. He was sort of a maverick.
Right.
But yeah, we and I never got into the Marvel ones for some reason. It was all the DC westerns were good. All the Marvel westerns were the Two Gun Kid. And I'm just not feeling that. Although I would have liked to have seen the original Ghost Rider.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and for me, like again, as a kid, I wasn't really into westerns, period. But I took that film class in college, and like one of my assignments was I had to kind of break down the ins and outs of Unforgiven and like talk about what Eastwood was trying to say with it, and just the themes and so on and so on and so on, like college bullshit, right?
Right.
And I don't know what it was with that movie, but by the end of it, like there was something in my head that clicked, and I was like, oh, I totally get it, and I absolutely love westerns now. And so that applied to comics too. Like I did read some of those stuff, like the classic Jonah Hex run, and at that point, like we were only a few years out from Palmiotti and Gray launching their Jonah Hex, so that was big to me too. For a few years, Dynamite had a really great Lone Ranger comic that was amazing. I think John Cassidy did all the art direction on it.
I remember that. That was a good book.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, the Butch Cavendish as the bad guy. I actually had a Lone Ranger action figure. The ones that used to advertise on the back of the comic books. I had that guy. Wish I still had.
So yeah, man. Like it was. Deepwell's one of those things where it's kind of been building in my head for the better part of like 10 plus years at this point. And I think the main thing that kind of put everything into focus was, at first it was just going to be about a bunch of criminals kind of lording over this town. And then I figured out you should add a vigilante to that. And then, like, the final icing on the cake was when I realized that all the criminals in the town kind of vying for power should be one big family. That kind of added this, like, George Martin, Shakespearean level family drama thing to it. And that was the point where I was like, okay, now it's done cooking. Now I just got to find an artist.
Yeah, that's almost Godfather level stuff there, where the brothers want the business.
Yep.
And they all run their own little section of it, but boy, they'd really like to sit in the big chair.
Yep.
That's gonna be cool. Zorro, another great Western vigilante.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Selena and I just got done rewatching Mask of Zorro like 2 months ago, and it's really, really good.
Yep, and they're still making some Zorro comics, I believe.
I think so.
I've been getting a lot more into Westerns lately, through the weirdest way, and it's
okay.
It's because I found on my Sirius XM radio classics. So I got, my wife's got every other channel on there, and then I've got this one. And she, every time I get in there and she gets in with me, she changes the channel. So why are you listening to that old people radio? I'm like, I'm 53, right? but I'm listening to William Conrad play James Arness in Gunsmoke, and then Hopalong Cassidy and Zorro. And it's just these radio dramas. I'm like, these are really good because you didn't have visuals, so you had to have great word choices and get the story across with just dialogue. And they had great writers for that kind of stuff. The comedy stuff, you don't find comedians like that anymore because they're relying more on sight gags and situations. Whereas these people, they had to use words and words alone to get things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, man. I found myself in a position maybe like 5 or 6 years ago now where I came into possession of some of the old Shadow radio dramas, like an old CD set that I don't even think still is in print. And yeah, man, I kind of developed an appreciation for like radio dramas. I dig them, and at some point, honestly, I would consider even making one because it's one of those things where you don't really need a budget. Like if you can just put together a handful of actors and someone to handle like light sound effects on a soundboard or whatever, I think it's a really easy way to tell a story. And if you broadcast it like this and have everyone like on their, like if you do it through like Skype or whatever, or the duck, it kind of like transcends radio play and it becomes this new thing almost. So I've been thinking about stuff like that.
It'd be like sitting around a what are they called? Not the casting table, but
like a read through.
A read through, yeah. Just have the entire cast there at the table and just read your scripts. That'd be a lot of fun. Actually, I'd participate in something like that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Think about that harder and then let me know, because I'm tired of back and watching this whole crowdfunding thing pass me by. That's why we came up with the Critical Blast logistics, and at the same time, I'm still trying to write comic books now.
Okay,
and they're just backburnered things because I'm like, I've interviewed enough of you guys to know that if you're just the writer, you gotta make money before you can make money. So you got to come up with like $6,000 or $7,000 just to pay a cover artist and an interior artist, and then you crowdfund and hope you make it back.
Well, I mean, kind of. I mean, again, our model is, we pay up front for an artist to produce anywhere between 2 and 5 pages, and also a cover on top of that. And that is an investment, but hopefully if you've done a previous campaign, like some of the profit that we got from the Samurai Leftovers campaign, some of that paid for Raphael's fee to do those initial pages for Deepwell.
Yeah.
And if you budget your campaign right, well, you don't really need X amount of money, because that's what the campaign is for, and then the rest of the campaign's funding is just for printing, shipping times 2, because you have to ship the books to you and then ship them to everyone else.
True.
So yeah, I mean, that's why our campaigns are really lean. Like our campaigns are always 6,000, and I'm not going to like dox anyone's page rates, but X percentage goes to actually produce the book, and then the rest of the book is, or the rest of the campaign is just shipping and fulfillment.
Yeah, I got the thing inside me that says, if I'm going to crowdfund a book, I want the book to be done when I start it. I don't want to have to be, first of all, I don't want to be forced to chase a deadline and feel that anxiety on me. And secondly, I want to be able to tell people the book is done. We're just crowdfunding it.
Right. Yeah, look, I would love to be in that position. Hopefully somewhere by like 122, if we can keep building an audience the way we have been, hopefully I can be in that position where, I can tell whoever, like Raphael or Kristen or, Stefani, like, hey, like, here's X amount of money, just go do a book and we're not gonna talk about it till it's done. But yeah, I mean, being on the small to medium scale, like it's just kind of like, if the campaign doesn't hit, like the book doesn't exist. And I think it's going to be that way for about another year, but we're seeing growth from project to project. So hopefully, like I said, by 2022, that can change.
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, it's going to sound kind of stupid. One of two things could happen here. One is that this model is going to take off, and it's just going to keep growing and getting better. And at the same time, it's, there's a possibility that people are saying, you know what, I'm tired of putting all my money into crowdfunded comic books, and it's just going to crash.
Sure. That is a concern. But again, like, not to keep going back to Ethan, but I mean, what the man says is true. Like, I'm here until they turn the lights out, and even then I'll probably still be here, because this audience, this format, everything about what we're building up here with this network is what's allowed us to keep doing what we want to do, in a lot of ways doing what we want to do for the first time, because prior to this we were just putting out submission packets, just shooting off ideas into the wind, knowing we never hear back.
Sure.
And yeah, like, I'm going to do everything I can to maintain the audience and build the audience that we've gotten, and keep positive about Comicsgate, because I've in all the years that I've been doing this, I've never seen anything like this. Like, living in Portland, and seeing a lot of these people firsthand, the mainstream comic industry really is this thing of like me first and F you,
Yeah.
And
it's
that's not how it is here in Comicsgate.
It's weird this year for us as a website, and I'm talking about the central core, criticalblast.com, because every year since we've been formed, we've done the best of the year. We do the best movie actor, best television series actor, and then we have our bombshell of the year when we started doing the cosplay thing, and then we have best comic book storyline, best comics writer, best comics artist. And it's always been like, here's, half a dozen events that came out this year and a couple of new comics. And here, half a dozen people. This year, in the nominees section alone, not even counting the fact that we allow for write-ins once this poll goes up, we got like 23 nominees in best comics and comic book storyline. And it's all because we've got X of Swords. I'm just reading the list here that we've got compiled here. Yeah. We've got X of Swords, King in Black, Dark Knight's Death Metal, The Joker War, Deceased, Dynamite. And then we go into Dominion, The Fall of the House of Saul, Villainous, Red Rooster, Common America, Punchline, Adventures of Kim Il-sung, Kyrie, Downcast, Eudaimonia, Soulbound, Vestry, Demon Hunter Raven, Saving the World, T-Bird and Throttle, Titan Mouse of Might, Lady Death, Lillian Wepwawet, U.S. Assassin, Niobe Birthright, Graveyard Shift, College of the Dead Graduation Day. And it's like they just trampled over the DC and Marvel stuff. And I can't wait to see who the readers vote on, because it's a month of January is just a month of reader voting on who they think the best of each category is. And there's a trophy involved. We create trophies and send them out to the winners. So there's physical object to be won here.
That's awesome, man. And that's what I like to hear. I mean, like, look, on one hand, because the industry shaped me and made me want to do this for the rest of my life. On the one hand, of course, I don't want to see it crash and burn. But on the other hand, when you look at the personalities involved, when you look at the egos involved, and when you look at what those people have actually done to mainstream comics, there's a part of you that's like, hey, keep going, because the more you screw up, the easier our job is.
Oh yeah. And God, do they screw up in the best way. So
they really do. This year has been crazy. Like the thing that sticks out to me the most about 2020 is when Dan Shahane did those industry roundtables with Jeppy from Diamond, and they did one day with retailers and they did one day with publishers. And this was right after the lockdown, and it was right after Diamond was like, hey, we're not paying anyone anything for like 3 months.
Oh yeah.
And so like on the retailer show, Jeppy was like all like warm-hearted and festive, and he was like everybody's favorite uncle, right?
Right.
But then on the publisher show, he showed who he really was, which is this like really shrewd, cold-hearted businessman, telling people like Mike Richardson from Dark Horse to like stay in his lane and not worry about the logistics. And Jeppy was having his wife and son send in $100 super chats with like no messages. And it was just this thing of like showing who was the boss and who was in control. It was really gross. And you see that play out, and you're like, even if Comicsgate wasn't a thing, I don't know that I would want to work in the industry if that's who I have to deal with. Like if that's the mindset, like I'm good.
Well, we saw what DC thought of all that, and I think one of the funniest things that happened was Diamond saying, "Hey, we're not shipping any new books until August. We're closed until August," and DC says, "Okay, Luna's going to ship our books." Did we say August? We meant May. We can start shipping books in May.
Right. Yeah, man, and like it was almost that the battered housewife thing of like you had shops and other companies and freelancers all kind of like shouting down DC, and it's like you realize they're doing what they're doing to like keep the doors open and keep you guys getting paychecks, right? Like if this is the response that you're going to get from Diamond, why keep working with Diamond? And and then all this stuff starts coming out about how Diamond is basically just a money loaning front, and like you have several publishers and creators who are in bed with them for like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's when you're like, oh, okay, I get why everyone's going bad for him now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that whole time period is why we launched the LCS Guys show every other Saturday, because I wanted to find out how comic shop owners were dealing with different areas of the country. It was being treated differently. Here in St. Louis, it was, in the Illinois side of the river, it was like, you're closed. You're not an essential business. You're done.
Right.
But you can sell out, you can do curbside service. In California, it was like just total shutdown. And then Mike Tierney in Arkansas, he was like, we have no shutdown here. I'm selling comic books, but now I can't get any because Diamond shut down. I'm open for business with nothing to sell, but back issues. But he started selling DC, and one of the things that came out of that retailer, it's basically our own mini retailer summit, was that, guess what, guys? I don't have shortages anymore. I don't have shipping issues anymore where, Diamond sends me 5 boxes, 1 book in each box, and I'm paying the shipping on each of those boxes. They package them up nice and neat in one.
Right.
Lessons were learned there, and hopefully Diamond's learning.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. Like, and again, more so than the industry itself. Like, I care about comic shops, especially being out here for 15 years now. There are some shop owners I'm really close with, some that we consider friends and family even. And back during the lockdown, a lot of them were just, on curbside status. And so, Selena and I would like go every week, and like, even though there were no new books coming out, like we were just buying, like, hey, we never got that trade or that graphic novel, like, or what's in your back issue bin that, like, we're kind of interested in. Like, we were putting in orders several times a month, just because we knew that they had no revenue coming.
Yeah, it was.
These shops are the ones that are getting hit the hardest by all this.
Yeah, and we know that some of them did close because they just like, we're going to close for a little bit. No, we're just going to stay closed. We're done. We're out. Again, Michael Tierney in Arkansas, he was looking at, not getting anything in.
Yeah.
The rent was coming due for the next year. Taxes were coming up on the building. He's like, what, if there was a perfect storm of reasons why to close down? He had 2 stores. He closed them both down. He went strictly to mail order, strictly to his existing customers. And he figured that would last, a couple of months and he could retire. And he's like, my customers just keep coming back. They could go to another store, but they've done business with me for so many years that they want to pay me to mail them books. So he's still doing mail order from his home. Sure. And he was my LCS guy when I lived in Little Rock for 5 years. So I can understand that. I would want him too. He understands comics. He writes for Overstreet, so he's in the industry. He knows what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, like it is what it is. Like, the industry is in a phase of contraction, and I don't know. Obviously, there'll be a Marvel and DC, but I don't know that they're going to be the Marvel and DC that we've known all these decades. And I think the smart comic shop are going to be the ones that like adapt and start carrying, smaller publishers, and kind of start treating themselves as boutique stores.
Yep.
And hopefully that'll make business good for us and other CG publishers and companies like Alterna. Like I know Peter is doing incredible since he walked away from Diamond. So.
Oh yeah, he is, and he's doing his own distribution. My local LCS guy, Dave Dyer at Cosmic Comics in Belleville, Illinois. He's very much exactly what you said, a boutique kind of store. He gets the big 2, but he gets so much independent stuff and small press stuff. And I had him in mind when I was thinking about doing this thing for LCS guys, because I know he's buying crowdfunded stuff and he's paying the shipping on a per book basis rather than on a per shipment basis. So if these guys like him could get multiple titles from multiple publishers in one box, just like you do from Diamond for the big guys, I think it's a niche I can step in and fill. And fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. But
absolutely, man.
All right, so Deep Well, I've still got it up here. I need to get that back on the screen here because we've talked about it. Still recommend people to go out and get this. It looks like a great book. The Gray Devil is the vigilante. This is not just a one and done either, though, is it? I mean, this is going to be a little bit of an ongoing.
Well, okay. So all of our, like Samurai and Dinosaurs was a standalone book. At least it was meant to be. There may be something over the next 2 years, but for all of our other books, God Fear Me, Deepwell, Red Key coming up in March. These books are all meant to be 3 volumes each. So um, what's interesting is in the case of Deepwell, once book 3 comes out, that's kind of the end of the Grey Devil's story. And I've teased this a few other places. There may at some point in the next, call it 4 years, be a series called Deepwell 1975.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that
Uh,
idea.
yeah. So, and like when people see, the gods fear me and what we may be planning with Samurai and Dinosaurs, and especially with Deepwell, like the more people read of our stories, they're gonna kind of get the sense that I like the idea of the advancement of time, um, because I think that there is good drama that comes from showing not just what happens next, but what are the ramifications of what's happened before. And so, just because the Grey Devil's story is going to come to an end at the end of book 3, you know, Deepwell as a place is still going to be an area on a map. And, 100 years later, what is that place? And, what does it mean? And what has it become as a result of the Grey Devil's actions? And so Deepwell 1975 is kind of going to be a Western blaxploitation story. And that's about all I can go into now, because we still got some ground to cover with Deepwell itself. But
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, 75, that lends itself to that grindhouse kind of feel too, where you can.
you're speaking my language, man.
All right. Uh, I want to say I want it now, but I want all of Deepwell first.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Deepwell is juicy, man. And again, like I've this whole time that Deepwell's been running, I've kind of had to be kind of ambiguous about, speaking about story specifics, just because the first book is all about the identity of the Grey Devil and why he's doing what he's doing. So by the time we get to book 2 and everything's out in the open, I will be more than happy to talk with people about like what the book is actually about, and why he's hunting down the Block family and what all of these things mean.
Well, folks can still get this in demand. You can get just a single physical copy for $15. We'll be shipping in February, or you can come up here and get the swag bag and get you get the trading cards. You get the print. You get the prints, multiple prints, not like Royal Son of a King. The prince is not coming with the
right. No, very much not.
You get this Preston Acevedo, the guy who is everywhere, is like one of the standout stars of crowdfunded comics. Preston Acevedo has done an alternate cover for this one. Is this a black and white cover, or is it just what you had at the time to put up?
No, just like with the Gods Fear Me, Preston is going to be our main alternate cover artist for as long as he'll stick with us. Just like with Gods Fear Me, the Deepwell cover he did is going to be in black and white and pencil. I think there's something about his work in black and white that really complements our main covers. So yeah, like it's going to be in black and white.
Yeah, sometimes color takes away from the pencil artwork. If you got a really good penciler, you want to preserve that.
Mm-hmm.
You can get the digital book and the prequel. Now, the prequel is not part of the physical book, so that's a separate story, right?
Yeah, so you can get the prequel there's a perk further down of the book and the prequel also comes with the swag bag.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So here you can get a copy of each of them. The mail-in exclusive, which is this mail-in alternate cover for $25.
Yeah, so that, like that was just meant to be a print, one of 2 prints for the swag bag. And once people saw it, it became really clear, like, no, we got to make this a cover. So, me and John talked and we worked some stuff out. And for this campaign only, like it's never going to be reprinted. Like you can get it as a cover.
All right. And here's the book and the prequel, $30. So it's $15 for the book. It's going to be $15 for the prequel. How big is the prequel? And what is the prequel?
The prequel. Yeah, the prequel is about the size of a mini comic. It's like what we did with Samurai and Dinosaurs. We had a prequel comic there called The Cabin that kind of explains what happens during the middle point of our group's journey in Samurai. So what the prequel is going to be for Deepwell is it's going to be modeled and emulated after Old West dime store novels, where it's mainly prose with accompanying black and white illustrations. And the prequel is going to be called The Cemetery of Forgotten Deeds, and it covers, you should probably read it after you read the main book, and it's going to cover everything about the Grey Devil's journey leading up to him showing up at Deepwell. The Cemetery of Forgotten Deeds is an actual place somewhere out in the world, and it's where vigilantes go to die and be reborn. So he kind of, gets his footing together, creates an identity for himself, and then sets out on his mission.
All right. That's so almost like a secret origin then for the Grey Devil.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's the same thing with the Gods Fear Me prequel. Like I like world building and I like lore, and I know that there are a lot of people out there like me. So if you just want the core story itself, just read the main book. But if you're like, well, what does this mean and what does that mean and how that happened and what does that lead to? Like, that's what the prequel books are for.
All right. You got the support the troop options here. 2 out of 3, you'll get 2 books, and 3 will go to the troops through Operation Paperback. Very, very cool option there.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then you get the another swag bag, which you got the swag and Eric's sketch card. So
yeah. So specifically, this was a really cool offer early on in the campaign. I reached out to Eric, and obviously he's known for his lettering, but I like his art. I liked his first book, and I've backed Battle Brick Road as well.
So this is Eric Weathers for everybody who doesn't know who Eric.
This is Eric Weathers' art. So I reached out to him, and he agreed to do a series of inked sketch cards, and so we're including one of these inked sketch cards with a swag bag pack.
Very cool, and one of them's already been taken. So if you want to get your choice of the other 2, get in there now before this one gets closed down.
Absolutely,
because you're going to close this one soon, right?
So yeah, the plan is we're gonna start fulfilling Gods Fear Me in February, and we're probably gonna close this one down in February, and then launch the Red Key in March, and probably be fulfilling Deepwell in April.
All right, and this last special here, $872 US, and I expect that from an overseas one where it's the currency conversion, 872. You got a very specific value on this, Mike. What's the deal with this one?
Yeah, so we did this with the Gods Fear Me as well, and we were fortunate and grateful enough that someone backed that one. Long story short, there, people come and go from Comicsgate, and there was kind of an ugly breakup with one person specifically who left Comicsgate, and that person was kind of trying to guilt me into staying associated with a website, and they were hanging this number $872 over my head because that's how much the website had brought in sales. And so I was like, I got to figure out a way to monetize this, right? So every campaign that we do is going to have the $872 tier. And sure, it's kind of a joke, but at the same time, you really do get your money's worth if you're one of the high-end backers. You're going to be getting everything from the campaign. you're going to be getting a proof copy of Deepwell, and you're going to be getting an 11 by 17 illustration drawn by me, painted by Selena, and you're going to be getting the very last page of the book from Raphael.
So the very last page of original art and
original art, and it's big for Raphael because Raphael's a digital artist. So this is the only page that he's going to be drawing by hand.
I was going to say, with so much digital, I'm like, just print one out, right? But okay, so it's going to be hand drawn.
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, that's the cover hadn't fully loaded on me. So this is the cover for the prequel here, The Gray Devil and the Cemetery of Forgotten Deeds.
Yes, it is. So yeah, that's going to be drawn by, Fernando Garan is handling the cover, and he's going to be doing the black and white spot illustrations that accompany the prose. And interesting fact, Fernando was actually supposed to be the main artist for Deepwell, but there was scheduling stuff and he just didn't have the time. But he did have enough time to provide the spot illustrations because, they're relatively easy to produce.
We're finding so many talented comic artists through this crowdfunding phase that would never have really gotten work at DC and Marvel, I think, just because of there's no availability for them. And I'm really surprised that, and it probably will happen within the next year, that the big two will start to feel the pinch a little bit more and the threat of, the indie publishers, and try to hire them away. Say, hey, wouldn't you like to draw Batman for a while?
Yeah, man, I'm really worried about Stefani. He's doing, Thomas Moria, which we're hosting for him because, in Brazil he can't work with Indiegogo.
Yeah.
He's going to be doing the Red Key with us next year, and that guy is super talented, and I am really worried about him getting snatched up by a major publisher.
I could see him doing Doctor Strange very easily, just looking at his, Thomas Moria stuff.
Absolutely.
Heck, I could see Marvel and DC putting these guys under an exclusive contract to draw nothing.
Right.
just to
keep them away from us.
Yeah. It's like, here's an exclusive contract. We'll let you know if we need something drawn, but don't draw anything else in the meantime.
Exactly. Right.
God, why did I just say that out loud? Now it's out there, and now they'll do it.
Right. Now the idea exists.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. AT&T is not going to give them the money to do that because they're trying to say, no, we're already giving you too much money. We're telling you to make other people not draw anything for a while.
Right. We're looking at reducing expenses.
Yeah. God, what did they get down to, like 34 titles, 32 titles? Must have been 34.
Yeah, it's going to be 34 titles by March. That's crazy.
And 30 of them will be back.
Yeah, so I got a handful of Christmas gifts, and they're from people that we know around town. So it's mostly mainstream stuff, and it's like the few remaining things that I'm interested in from the mainstream. And I had this realization. I'm like, DC really has become like the Batman publisher. There's nothing else. Like three Jokers, the hardcover collection of Sean Gordon Murphy's second Batman book, the hardcover of Tintin's first arc on Batman. All of these prestige format things coming out of DC are pretty much just all Batman books.
Yeah, I don't think the only Black Label book that's come out that hasn't been Batman has been The Question. Right. Well, I guess is Rorschach Black Label? I totally blocked.
I don't know. Well, there is a Wonder Woman by Daniel Warren Johnson.
Okay, yep, that's one I remember. I totally blocked Rorschach out of my mind when Tom King told me not to buy it.
No, look, that's just good marketing.
Yeah, don't buy half of the books that my publisher is putting out, and guarantee he's not going to be the one of the few people that AT&T is telling to cut the fat on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, look, especially now that he has Hollywood ties, like they'll keep him around just because.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody needs to win. Somebody needs to win a lottery or sell $1 million frog book, and then just go out and hire Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Paul Levitz. Get these guys that know how to do comic books under one roof again and said, what would we do today if we had no limits? And put something out, and we'd buy it. We would, because it would be good, and it would be by people who know how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think what we're seeing is that it's not just enough to be a certain level named talent from the mainstream industry. I think what we're seeing is the Comicsgate approach of like, hey, it's yes, you have to be talented. Yes, you have to have a good product that people are interested in. But you also have to not be an asshole, and you have to be somewhat compelling on live streams. Like you have to have a good radio voice, so to speak. Like I think people want to connect with you on a certain personal level outside of the art. And if you're just sitting there giving these canned answers, in pre-recorded YouTube clips and not doing any live streams, not posting anything with a certain level of honesty, I think people can smell that. And that's why you've got Sean Gordon Murphy, capping out with his campaign, and Scott Snyder capping out with his campaign.
Well, remember, just because you creators are on the internet does not mean that fans have the right to talk to you. That's been decided. It's a privilege that you get to have this, and I don't know what. I know who said that, and I still maintain that no, it's a privilege that you as a creator now can connect with your readers and learn from them firsthand rather than not hearing from them and going through your editors and doing what the editors say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, even though like we're like still climbing the ladder, over the past 10 years or so, here in Portland, like we built up a small audience of supporters, and we would do signings on like Free Comic Book Day and stuff. And there's such an amazing thing. Like there's this one fan of ours. When we first met her, she was like maybe 9 or 10, and now she's going on 20. So we've literally watched this young woman grow up, and it's such an amazing thing to like connect with fans. And it's one of like the favorite things about, for us at least, about working in comics. And these people who actively hate their audiences, I don't understand that mindset or where it comes from, because like that's the best part for me, like hanging out and doing stuff like with you and meeting people at signings and whatnot. Like it's so awesome to like know that people actually care about what you're doing and are invested.
Your audience is your customer.
Yeah,
your audience is directly a customer. Their audience is their editor. That's it. It's like, once it gets to the editor, they're out of the picture. The editor's customer is the retail shop, and then the retail shop is the guy who's on the hook to try to actually unload these books on people.
Yeah, and yeah, you see a lot of them take that hardline stance of like, well, you're not my audience, like my boss is my audience. And it's like, that's such a myopic way of looking at what your actual job and career is. And it's like, well, that's why you don't have any work right now, and that's why you've posted, without naming names, like you've posted X number of YouTube videos and no one is subscribing to you. Like, people are starting to smell the about you.
Yeah, it's if they were connecting with the readers and realized that the readers were their customer, and maybe the ones that do that are the ones that aren't being cut because they're actually selling books.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a great awakening coming someday, and I don't know what it's going to take for them to get it.
Right. I think we're in the, I don't want to say the beginning, but maybe like the first act. I think we're in the first act of it, man. I mean, you talk about DC with 34 titles. How many people does that exclude? Like, how many people are literally unemployed right now?
I know several off the top of my head, actually. But we're talking about the DC writers and artists and editors and all of that. And we we keep talking about DC and Marvel are going away. They're disappearing. I don't want that to happen. I think I'm saying that it is happening. I'm not necessarily dancing on their grave. I wish they would say, I wish they would wake up and say, "Oh my God, we're doing, we're killing ourselves here. Let's stop this. We're having a heart attack every night. Maybe let's not do a whole bag of Oreos before we go to bed." But I don't see them waking up.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's what I was saying earlier. I mean, like, again, like, Superman is like one of my favorite characters of all time, and like, I grew up a DC kid, and as a teen and into my 20s, like, I gained an appreciation for Marvel, and I don't want to say I don't want these companies to fail. What I should be saying is I don't want the legacies of these characters to fail, but I feel like people left in charge of them have already failed them. So I think at this point we're just watching the domino chain,
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that's going to keep them from failing, the Comicsgate people could keep them from failing if they were open to the idea. And now, boy, this is a can of worms I'm going to open. All right. So I think it's fair to say that Comicsgate people have some hard feelings against some of the pros in the industry for things that have been said. And I think that as long as Comicsgate people don't leave their options open to that person changing and getting better, then that person's not going to change and get better.
Right.
And I say this because what prompted me on this was your boy Zach did a review of Max Visaggio's book, the Ginny Hex thing. He said,
"Right,
and it's a Western, hey." And he said, exactly. This is a good book. Now he's got plenty of reason to trash Max Visaggio without even reading the book. Just hold it up, said, "This came out, this is trash because Mads wrote it."
Right.
He's got plenty of history, plenty of water under that bridge to do that. And he came out and he said he judged the book for what it was, not for the history of the person who wrote it. We need more of that. If somebody's doing good, then separate the art from the artist, something that, we were trying to preach 3 years ago. Preach it back in the other direction, so that we are open to good books.
It's a tightrope, man, because I definitely agree with separating the art from the artists. Even before Comicsgate, like there were a lot of creators who I knew on a somewhat personal level and thought they were complete raging assholes, but I had to step back and say, but they're a really good writer or they're a really good artist. Like you can't deny reality just because you don't like someone on a personal level. I think the main issue comes in when a creator specifically attacks an individual or a group of people and says, the whole Kelly Sue thing of like, well, just own my book, because once it comes to that level, it's like, well, now we're at a place where it doesn't matter if the book is good or bad. It's irrelevant. It's an ideological battle. And okay,
You told us not to
you are
buy it, we won't.
specifically, yeah, you're calling me horrible things and saying don't give you my money. All right, I won't.
And where is Aquaman?
Yeah, exactly. For the first time in like a decade.
Yep. And we didn't buy your book, so
Yeah.
now they're not selling it.
Yep.
Yeah. It's. I'm not saying that there aren't strides that are going to have to be made on that side as well to come around and reach back out and say, okay, I've written the book. I'd really like you guys to try it and read it, and keep opinions about beliefs to oneself. And I almost wonder. I wonder if this anti-Comicsgate hate would have been such a thing if Hillary Clinton had won in 2016.
Right. I think if Hillary won, I think Comicsgate may still have existed. I just don't know that it would have been what it blew up into.
Yeah,
that's my guess, at least.
I think you're right too, because I think a lot of what blew it up was it was hated by all the right people for all the right reasons.
Right.
That's kind of a cynical take on things, but it's
Yeah, and I just got done saying this whole thing, like, them generalizing us, and I don't want to seem hypocritical, so I'm not trying to make generalization here, but what I've seen firsthand, both from people that I know and people that I've seen in their actions online, when it comes to a lot of these people on like the far left side of the equation, like the one thing I'm noticing they all have in common is they're headline readers. And I think if as far as you go is someone saying something to you and you taking it at face value, then yeah, like you're going to hear all this terrible stuff about Comicsgate, and that's going to form your belief structure. And no matter what anyone else says, you're going to figure out ways to spin it back to that original belief.
Yeah.
Yeah, without getting too into the weeds on this, like one of those people who like cut themselves out of our lives after going CG, a year later, I tried meeting up with them for a cup of coffee. I was like, hey man, let's talk some of this out, because we have 10 years of history between us. Like we're basically a family, and this whole thing is stupid over a hashtag. Like, let's talk. And like the discussion quickly devolved into all the talking points that all of those people use against us. And when I got to the point of like, he was trying to make this like racial argument about how it was all old white guys or middle-aged white guys, and they were purposely killing women and like minorities. I was like, you realize you're including my wife in that group, and she is a part of Comicsgate, and she's Hispanic, and she's a she.
Yeah.
But and I listed some of the other creators in CG who I've become friends with at this point, who are not straight white guys. And without saying it, and again, like they're really clever when it comes to wordplay. Without saying it, he basically labeled all of those people as Uncle Toms.
Yeah.
And I was like, you realize you're saying that about my wife, like a friend of yours who's like cooked meals for you. We've had you into our home. Like, you're saying that about my wife. And again, could not get past the headline, could not reconcile that. And that meant that he had to maintain that line for the sake of that belief.
Yeah, I've heard the whole, that CG has to let in some of those people so that they can say, look, we're inclusive. like
Right.
there's a gatekeeper that says you can't be CG. I haven't seen anybody being told that they couldn't be CG. I've heard people told that they couldn't trademark CG
Sure.
and make their own thing. But if Vox Day obviously had that big blow up when he tried to do a CG imprint. But if he
Right.
wanted to come out and put out a comic book and say, hey, buy my new comic book #Comicsgate,
Right.
what would anybody do?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I'm not a fan of Vox, and there are other people that use the hashtag and say that they're a part of Comicsgate that I'm not a fan of, and I'm sure it's that way with all of us. But like, just because I work in the same office building as someone doesn't mean that I have to like them.
Yeah, Comicsgate is mainstream comics Protestantism. It's I've said it before. If DC and Marvel were the Catholic Church, then your boy Zach and Captain Cummings was Martin Luther nailing it on the wall, and we've splintered into different denominations since then. And some of us hate each other, but we're all Protestants. So
right. Yeah, man. It's I know that from the outside, on a surface level, Comicsgate and all the different cliques and sects and like groups that have come and gone, I know on a surface level it can be kind of complicated in appearance and daunting, but if even just a handful of the people that scream all of these things, as often as they do, would just take the time to even look just like one layer deep below the surface, I don't think this constant uphill PR battle would be what it is for us in Comicsgate.
Yeah. I mean, if we're supposed to avoid a group of people because 2 or 3 people screamed something offensive, I shouldn't be reading any more mainstream comic books.
Right.
Because I've heard way more of it from the mainstream professionals than I have from anybody in Comicsgate, or who says they're Comicsgate at least.
Yeah, and believe me, man, as someone who's like, been to like after parties and store signings and stuff with like some of these people, some of the stuff that they say when there's no reporter and no fans around to like take notes, these people aren't the shining knights that they make themselves out to be. So it's this hypocritical thing of like, okay, like you're going to do what you got to do because like CG bad is the company line that you got to toe. Well, then I'll just fight that uphill battle forever because I couldn't be happier here with, like our peers and our audience that we've built up for ourselves.
I completely agree with you. I've met so many cool people, made so many friends in this industry. I'm hopefully going to be working with them in some sort of distributive fashion here in the very near future. But
absolutely,
I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad I hooked onto this train, hitched my wagon to it, so to speak. Am I Comicsgate? Yes. Am I mainstream? Yes. And I'm pro comics, so I'll have a lot of Comicsgate people come on the show. A lot of not Comicsgate people come on the show. If they're not Comicsgate, guess what? I don't do. I don't debate Comicsgate with them. I let them promote the book. If they are Comicsgate and want to talk about it, I will. If they bring it up, I'll let them talk about that and we'll talk. We don't get confrontational here. We're not that kind of a show. I'm more interested in what your opinion is and why. And sometimes I'll throw ideas out there, but we're not a fight channel. If you came here looking for drama, you're 2 channels to the left. So, all right. Well, Mike, we've been here just kind of chewing the fat for an hour and a half, half hour longer than we usually go, but making up for the half hour we got screwed out of last night when we lost connection with Will Murray, talking about the Shadow of all things.
Nice. Okay.
And you talk about bringing the Shadow into the modern age, because how much of the lore doesn't work anymore. The pneumatic, remember the Shadow communicated with a network of people in the 40s through these layers of pneumatic tubes. And just send an email.
Right. Yeah, that's one of those. And again, like I know you're trying to wrap up, so I'll keep this short. But like that's one of those things where I think there is a way to bring more characters into the modern age, but I also think there are some characters that are just of their age.
Yeah,
Um, it's one of the reasons why I'm one of those guys that thinks, whenever they get around to a Fantastic Four movie, it should be a period piece. It should be set in the 60s. It should basically be the right stuff by way of Mad Men.
yeah, absolutely. Give it sort of that WandaVision kind of feel, but make it stick, not be an illusion. Um,
Right,
yeah, when
right.
DC did the Shadow, remember when Kyle Baker turned him into like
Hmm.
Shadow's head on this giant robot with arm? Like I just totally noped out at that point. I couldn't do it
Yeah, no,
anymore.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Dynamite tried updating the Shadow a few years ago. They turned the Shadow into like a female Puerto Rican police officer from Chicago, I think. Um, I was just like, no, you don't like just make a new character because that's not the Shadow.
Yeah, you just copied the question that they did
Right,
at DC.
right.
So
And
all right,
as much as I don't care for Rucka, like what he did with the question over the course of 52, like Renee earned the right to call herself the question, whereas like a lot of this stuff today is just like it's obviously just, well, you're problematic, so we have to get rid of you.
yeah. Well, we you've all gotten pushed into pushed out of the burning building, as the guy says. So
Exactly.
get someday at a convention, someone's going to stand up in a panel discussion and publicly thank Mark Waid for making Comicsgate what it is today.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and he's going to have to realize that it's true. Uh,
Yeah,
you
like just some guy said, like and again, without getting into that whole mess, like the biggest victory that we can take from all this is Comicsgate is still around, and Mark Waid can talk about like 30 to 40% of what Comicsgate is now. So I'll take that.
This is true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mike, I'm going to let you go here and give you the rest of your evening back. Go get some dinner, and we
Yeah, man.
will be back. We'll be back Saturday night to go over the best of 2020. Not that there was a lot of best of it, but we did our best to make something up. Thursday and Friday are open, so if anybody is out there wanting to push their book and you're watching this on the replay, hit us up on Twitter at Critical Blast or email us at criticalblast.com. I'll tell you what, you can find us at any of these places here. So there are ways to reach us. We are not unknown. Let us know you want to come on. We will have you on for your hour and talk about your comic. Mike, thanks for bringing Deepwell on with us. If you get The Gods Fear Me back up and running, let us know. We'll do something next week. We'll talk about that one and push it the rest of the way.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Good night, man.